Okay, so think about this for a sec. You walk into, say, a grocery store.
Uh-huh. Or maybe an electronic shop, right?
Yeah. Or a hospital, even a big warehouse. Just, look around.
Everything you can see.
Everything.
Right.
Every single thing. It got there on a truck. It's this constant movement, huge scale, but we almost don't see it day to day.
That's exactly right. We're literally surrounded by the results of this industry, but the folks making it happen, the carriers, the truck drivers, the trucking companies, they often fly under the radar.
Totally. And that's really what we want to get into today. We've been looking over some material, some data that really hammers home how fundamental these carriers are to the whole U.S. economy.
And it's important, like the sources stress, when we say carriers, we're not just talking about the rig itself.
No, not just the 18-wheeler.
Right. It's the people. The owner-operators running their own show, the fleets, big and small, the drivers, obviously, but also dispatchers, mechanics, the business minds behind it all.
It's this whole ecosystem. So yeah, our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why the stuff we read calls carriers the real backbone of the economy. What's the actual evidence for that claim?
Okay. Well, I think a really powerful place to start, maybe the most vivid example recently, is the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thinking back to those first few months,
Yeah.
so much just stopped.
Everything seemed to grind to a halt, didn't it? But trucks kept moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing that didn't stop.
And our sources really hit this point hard. Critical supplies, PPE, food, fuel, medicine kept flowing because carriers stayed on the road.
And the text we saw made a point of saying, there wasn't applause every night for them. No big headlines.
Nope. Just, as it said, pure grit. Getting an absolutely essential job done under really tough circumstances.
It really shows how foundational it is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just convenient. It's like the base layer keeping things going.
And the sheer scale involved.
Mhm.
It's kind of mind-boggling when you look at the numbers. The info we have says trucks moved over 11.4 billion tons of freight just in 2023.
11.4 billion tons.
Yeah. And get this, that's about 72% of all the freight moved domestically by weight.
72%.
Mm-hmm.
You hear a lot about ships and planes and trains, but trucks are doing the vast majority of the heavy lifting, literally.
It's easy to forget.
That number, 11.4 billion tons,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost too big to picture. It's like
Oh.
moving the weight of every single person in the U.S. like 35 times over every year.
Wow. That's a comparison. But it brings it home.
It really does. And it connects directly to us, right? That package on your porch.
Mm-hmm. Almost certainly on a truck for at least part of its journey. The supplies your local hospital needs.
Trucked in. It's the final mile, sure, but often many miles before that, too.
And then there's the money side of it, the economic footprint.
Right. The sources mentioned trucking generated nearly $940 billion in revenue last year.
Almost $1 trillion.
Yeah.
That's a massive chunk of the economy.
It's huge. And that 940 billion, it's not just abstract, right?
Right.
It represents jobs, it fuels other sectors, it's the actual flow of commerce.
Exactly. It's not just moving stuff. It's a huge economic engine in its own right, driving GDP growth.
Definitely reframes things. Easy to just see a truck on the highway and not think about that massive impact.
And beyond the direct revenue, think about the jobs.
Yeah, that was another big number.
Mm-hmm.
How many drivers did the Bureau of Labor Statistics count?
3.5 million professional truck drivers.
3.5 million. Wow. And that's just the drivers, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's just scratching the surface. The material we looked at suggests it's over 8.4 million jobs tied directly or indirectly to trucking.
8.4 million. So who else are we talking about?
Well, you've got mechanics keeping the rigs running, obviously, people loading and unloading in warehouses, folks working at truck stops and fuel stations, the logistics planners.
Route planners, dispatchers.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's this whole connected web of employment.
a massive ecosystem.
And something else that stood out was the type of jobs the sources called them real middle-class wages.
Yeah, that's a key point. The median pay for heavy-duty drivers was around $54,000 last year.
Okay, solid middle-class income. And it mentioned that specialized roles, like hauling hazardous materials or oversized loads, can push into six figures.
Absolutely. So it represents a really viable career path for a lot of people. And like the sources note, especially in more rural communities, it offers good earning potential, often without needing a 4-year degree.
That's a crucial point about opportunity, isn't it? A pathway to economic stability.
Definitely.
And, okay, with all those trucks, all those drivers covering What was it? Over 300 billion miles a year?
Uh-huh, 300 billion miles annually. That kind of usage, it obviously puts huge demands on our infrastructure.
Right. It means we constantly need to invest in roads, bridges, rest stops, truck parking, which is a big issue we hear
A
about.
huge issue, and logistics hubs, maintenance facilities, the list goes on, but it also drives technology forward.
Yeah, this part was fascinating. It's not just driving anymore. The tech mention includes things like real-time GPS fleet tracking,
Very good.
dash cams that use AI, not just recording, but looking for like driver fatigue or unsafe habits.
Yeah, predictive AI. And telematics systems that can predict when a truck needs maintenance before it breaks down.
That's smart. Plus, these complex load matching platforms connecting shippers and carriers instantly.
Right, optimizing everything. And then there's the ongoing work in autonomous trucking technology. Still evolving, but it's happening.
It really pushes back against that image of trucking as like low tech or old school.
Totally. It's actually a pretty high-tech industry in a lot of ways now. They're leveraging data, optimizing complex logistics. It's sophisticated stuff.
Way beyond just steering the wheel. And that connects to the global picture too, right? Carriers are vital for international trade.
Absolutely essential. They're the link. Think about goods coming into a major port. The sources use the Port of Los Angeles as an example.
Okay, yeah. Big one.
How does that stuff get from the port to, say, a distribution center like the Walmart one in Iowa mentioned in the text?
Uh-huh. Truck.
Exactly. Trucks are doing that critical inland movement.
And so many businesses now rely on that just-in-time delivery model, right? Minimal inventory, stuff arrives just when it's needed.
Which makes reliable trucking absolutely non-negotiable. Those lean supply chains just fall apart without dependable carriers.
Yeah, the sources pointed out that delays aren't just inconvenient. They can shut down production lines.
That lead to factory downtime, empty shelves in stores. The ripple effects are huge.
So the efficiency and reliability of our trucking industry is actually a big factor in the whole country's global competitiveness.
It really is, but, and this is a big but, despite being so vital, carriers face some serious headwinds. The material we reviewed highlighted some pretty significant challenges.
Yeah, this is where it gets tough for them. We're talking about things like unfair treatment by some freight brokers, struggling to get paid on time or at all for invoices. These scams, like double brokering.
Which sounds pretty shady.
Yeah, apparently it involves a broker taking a load they shouldn't, then passing it off secretly to another carrier, causing payment chaos, and just generally dealing with difficult contracts.
So while the market was deregulated, supposedly to boost competition,
Right.
it hasn't always created a level playing field for the actual carriers, especially the smaller guys, the independent operators. There can be a real power imbalance there.
They can be really vulnerable to unethical practices.
It seems like it.
And that's where this thing called Cargocredible.com came up in the reading. It was presented as a potential tool, something to help empower carriers.
Right. It sounds like it's trying to bring some transparency to the broker-carrier relationship, give carriers more information before they agree to take a load.
How does it work exactly? Like reviews.
Yeah, basically. Access to reviews, ratings, past complaints filed against brokers or shippers. A way to check reputations.
Okay, like a credit check,
Yeah.
but for broker reliability.
Kind of. And carriers can also anonymously report shady stuff they encounter, track companies that seem risky, and see information about how quickly or if certain brokers tend to pay.
Ah, okay, so it's about sharing intel, basically.
Yeah.
Helping carriers avoid getting burned.
Exactly. Creating a shared knowledge base to hopefully level that playing field a bit, give them some leverage, help them find the truth about who they're dealing with.
Sounds pretty useful, honestly. In an industry where, trust and knowing who you're working with seems absolutely critical.
It really does.
So wrapping this up, it really circles back to where we started, doesn't it? Carriers, there's so much more than just trucks on a highway.
Yeah, they're the circulatory system of the economy, really. From tiny local deliveries all the way up to keeping massive national and global supply chains running.
So maybe next time you see a truck rolling down the road, take a second. Think about the person driving, the incredible coordination involved, and, well, everything that truck might be carrying that keeps our lives moving.
It's definitely worth considering, and it leaves us with a pretty important question, I think. After digging into how vital they are and also some of the real difficulties they face,
Right.
it makes you think about those power dynamics in the industry.
Exactly. So here's something to chew on, a final thought drawn from the questions raised in our source material. Should these carriers, who are so essential, have more legal protections?
Or maybe more tools like this Cargocredible idea, giving them better information and leverage?
Or is the answer less red tape, maybe simplifying things between them and brokers? Where should that balance of power really sit? Something to think about.